All right, so AI, everyone's talking about it, right? Coding, music, even game shows. It's out there learning all the time. But how do we know what's really going on in that artificial mind? Like, is it understanding the world, or is it just one big sophisticated mimicry act?
It's a question a lot of people are asking, and for good reason. Yeah, it's like that old saying about the parrot. Does it really get the words it's repeating or just mimicking sounds?
Exactly. And that's where this Othello research comes in. It's like a window into AI's thought process.
And what makes this study so clever is they use a game with really simple rules, but the strategy gets so complex.
Okay, so quick Othello recap for those who haven't played.
Yeah.
You've got your board, black and white discs. The goal is to basically outflank your opponent. Flipping their discs to your color sounds easy, but it's all about that strategic placement thinking many moves ahead.
Exactly. Now imagine trying to teach an AI to play, not by showing it the board or explaining the rules, just by feeding it lists of moves from past games like a transcript.
Oh, wow. So like trying to learn chess just by looking at those little notation sheets.
You're right, and that's exactly what they did. Created this AI, Othello-GPT, and it only ever saw those move transcripts.
And get this, it actually worked. Othello-GPT started predicting legal moves really accurately, even in totally new game scenarios, ones it had never seen before. So clearly something more than just memorization was happening.
Absolutely suggests the AI was forming some kind of internal representation of the game, a way to make sense of the moves without ever seeing a physical board.
Okay, so how do we actually see inside the AI's mind, so to speak? That's where the probes come in, right?
Yeah, exactly. Think of a probe like a specialized tool researchers can use to analyze the AI's internal workings to see if it's actually building a mental model of that game board.
So like trying to map out a city just by reading directions.
Hmm.
You might start to get a sense of where things are even without a visual map.
Precisely. Now, researchers started with linear probes, which were fairly basic, like trying to draw that city map using only straight lines.
A bit simplistic considering how complex Othello can get.
Exactly. And the results kind of reflected that. The linear probes weren't very accurate in predicting the AI's behavior, but then they brought in the nonlinear probes.
All right, so before we dive into those, give us a quick breakdown of what makes them different. We're talking about AI after all things can get complex.
Of course. You see, linear probes assume a very straightforward relationship between the AI's input, the move transcripts, and its output, predicting the next move. Nonlinear probes, on the other hand, those are designed to capture more subtle nuance relationships.
Okay, so instead of those straight lines on our city map, nonlinear probes are like adding in those winding streets, the alleys, maybe even a roundabout or two.
Very good analogy. They let us explore whether the AI is forming a more sophisticated understanding of the game, and as it turned out, the accuracy of these nonlinear probes was way higher. It was like the AI had the secret internal map of the Othello board all on its own.
Now that is fascinating. It's like this AI has been studying in secret, building its own understanding of the game, even though we never explicitly gave it the tools to do so. This is where it starts to feel like we're peeking behind the curtain of AI consciousness, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It challenges our assumptions about how AI learns and suggests that it might be capable of much more than simple pattern recognition.
This is incredible. It's like the AI has built this whole mental model of the game board without ever actually seeing one. But how do we know for sure that this internal map is actually influencing its decisions? I mean, is there a way to test that?
There is. This is where things get really interesting. Researchers designed what they called intervention experiments. Essentially, they wanted to see what would happen if they subtly messed with the AI's mental map mid-game, like nudging a player's hand while they're drawing to see if it affects their art.
Oh, wow. That's a cool way to think about it. So how did they actually mess with its mental map? And what happened? Did it notice?
Imagine, if you will, reaching into the AI's mind and just subtly shifting its understanding of where a piece was on the board. They'd let Othello-GPT analyze a game, and just as it was about to predict the next move, they'd tweak its internal representation. And you know what? It adapted.
Wait, seriously? So it's not just following a pre-programmed set of rules, it's actually adjusting its strategy based on this messed up map.
Exactly. And get this, they even tried these interventions on impossible board setups, configurations that would never occur in a real game. And even then, the AI adjusted its predictions based on the altered map.
Okay, that is truly mind-blowing. It really hammers home the point that there's a deeper level of understanding happening here, something that goes way beyond simple pattern recognition, right?
You're absolutely right. It shows a level of flexibility and adaptability that we haven't seen in AI before. But hold on, it gets even more fascinating. Remember those latent saliency maps we mentioned earlier?
Oh yeah, the heat maps that show where the AI is looking on the board.
Hmm.
Tell me more. This is where I think it gets really revealing.
So researchers created these saliency maps for Othello-GPT, but here's the twist. They trained two versions of the AI. One was trained on millions of random Othello games, and the other was trained on thousands of championship-level games, games played by real experts.
Okay, so one AI is like the student who crammed the night before the test, just memorizing random facts, and the other is the one who really studied, absorbed the material, and learned from the masters.
That's a great way to put it. And when they compared the saliency maps of these two AIs, they found something remarkable. The maps looked completely different.
No way. Seriously. How so?
The AI trained on random games, its saliency map was very focused and almost simplistic. It was so fixated on just following the rules and finding legal moves that it wasn't really considering the bigger strategic picture.
Like a beginner chess player who only knows how each piece moves, but not the deeper strategies behind it.
Exactly. But the AI trained on championship games, its saliency map was way more complex, spread across the board. It was clearly paying attention to more than just the legal moves. It was picking up on pattern strategies, subtle nuances of the game.
Wow, just by observing those expert-level games, it was starting to develop a deeper understanding of the game, almost like it was learning from a master Othello player.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And this is where it gets really interesting. It's not just about what the AI learns, it's about how it learns. The quality of the data it's trained on has a huge impact on the way its understanding develops.
So what you're saying is feeding an AI tons of data isn't enough. It needs the right kind of data to develop a more nuanced, sophisticated understanding of the world, just like us humans, really. But okay, we've got this AI learning to play a complex game by reading move transcripts, building its own mental map of the board, and we can even peek inside and see what it's focusing on. This is all amazing, but what does it all mean? Why should we care how an AI plays Othello?
Right.
It's not like we're all going to rush out and challenge AI to Othello now, so what's the bigger takeaway?
Exactly. This research, it's about way more than just a game. Think of it like this. Whenever you learn something new, you start noticing patterns, right? Making connections, and you kind of build this mental model in your head of how that thing works.
Like when I finally learned to drive stick shift,
Yeah.
suddenly it all clicked. I understood how the clutch, the gears, the engine all work together.
Yeah.
It wasn't just memorizing steps anymore.
Exactly. And that click, that's what we're seeing glimpses of with this Othello-GPT. It's not just memorizing moves. It's like it's building its own understanding, its own world model to make sense of the information.
So this world model idea, that's the key takeaway here. It's about more than games. It's about how AI might be forming models of the entire world around them.
Precisely. This research suggests that as AI systems get exposed to more and more data, especially high-quality data, they might be developing these really sophisticated ways of understanding it, building their own internal maps, just like we saw with Othello-GPT in that game board.
Okay, now my mind is racing. If this AI can build an internal model of a game board just by looking at move transcripts, what other kinds of maps could AI be creating right now? Like, what would an AI's internal map of language look like?
Or of human behavior. It's kind of unnerving when you think about it.
Those are the million-dollar questions. And honestly, those are the questions researchers are really grappling with right now. We're talking about AI potentially mapping out incredibly complex concepts, everything from human emotions to the entire internet. It's exciting and a little scary at the same time, right? Like we're talking about unlocking these incredible new capabilities,
Yeah.
but it's also stepping into the unknown.
I think that's a perfect way to put it. And it really highlights how important it is to not just focus on building more powerful AI, but really understanding it too. Making sure these internal maps they're creating actually align with our values and goals as humans.
You know, for all the talk about AI taking over the world, this conversation makes me feel like we're just at the very beginning of understanding what AI can really do. Like, what if these internal maps are the key to unlocking even more incredible AI abilities in the future, things we can't even imagine yet?
Now, wouldn't that be something? It's a future full of possibilities, that's for sure, and certainly gives us a lot to think about.
It certainly does. Well, on that note, I'm ready to go challenge a chess AI to a duel, or maybe I'll just brush up on my Othello strategy just in case. Thanks for the amazing deep dive. And for our listeners, until next time, keep those brains buzzing, and we'll catch you on the flip side of the next fascinating topic.